welcome to the Terminal Velocity Podcast Bonus Elseworlds episode number 1 for our season 2. It's been a while.
It certainly has. It's been at
Well, I
least
guess
a half hour since our last episode.
Yeah. Well, in case you haven't watched that one, I'm your host, Andrew, and this is my co-host.
Scott, how's it going?
And today we're going to talk about WandaVision, if the background isn't obvious, or the cover art that you clicked on. But yeah, we're, as of recording right now, we're, what is it, 8 episodes in of 9?
I think so.
And so we had, I guess, what do you call it, with the penultimate episode or whatever. We're a little late to the party, but the show definitely we're talking about. And I haven't been this excited about the MCU in a while, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think this has been a really clever departure from feature films into TV, and it was one that I wasn't 100% convinced would make sense. And not that it makes sense, but it's hell of entertaining. And by its own construction, it wasn't kind of made to make sense until I think this episode right now that we watched today. But I've been really enjoying kind of them embracing the more comics aspect to the characters and shows, and I think that's one of those things that has really been working in the Marvel formula for the MCU and through their media, has just been leaning into the comics and just being like, you know what, this is a bit of a crazy idea, we're going with it. And they're
definitely
playing
not the plot you would get in a feature, just because there's not enough time to kind of like lay all the everything you need as to kind of set up, I guess, the payoff that you're going to get in the end. What I'm liking about this whole Disney Plus approach to Marvel TV, because we've seen Marvel TV before, there's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Cloak and Dagger and what was the other one? Inhumans. We know how those went. But this is the first time that Kevin Feige, I guess, and his like internal group or the film division essentially are taking the shows in-house. But with the streaming platform, it's giving them the avenue to not be necessarily bound to like every episode's got to be 30 minutes or 45 minutes, and you can't say this, can't do that, can't do this, but you can do that. It's allowing them to take a long form story approach, which is what comics typically are. Is the best comics, anyways, have been long form storytelling that really seeds everything to its audience, and then you get your payoffs. Sometimes it doesn't stick the landing, sometimes it does. In this case, like you said, it's a very strange and kind of bizarre story that you wouldn't really get in a movie. At least it wouldn't have the same impact, because everything would feel very rushed. It's also giving Marvel an opportunity to develop lesser known characters in a time frame and format that will appeal to a wider audience.
And I think
if
that's
you
what
hook
really...
people with these lesser characters in compelling stories like this, they can graduate to feature films and become kind of A-list characters. I mean, you and I have been comics fans for a lifetime, and we know who Scarlet Witch and the Vision are. But if you had said that to somebody on the road, still probably don't know who those characters are. Except maybe now that WandaVision's been out, it's the talk of the town. It's got the top streaming numbers of any streaming show right now, even beating Netflix's Bridgerton, which apparently was doing really well. And I think that also could backfire on them a little bit too. And the reason being is that I think it sets, as a show becomes like a fad and people really embrace its lore, they start having wild speculation and expectation, and the expectations develop, and then ultimately disappointment. And I found that this happened with all the killer shows that have been out. Is like Game of Thrones is a big example, where the expectations got so high based on its own hype about how gritty it was and how deep the storytelling was, and when, they probably did have that idea that Daenerys was going to be the villain at the end. But like everything, people had the time to like build up their own story in their mind, and unfortunately, that killed the payoff for that show for
Hmm.
some of the viewers. I think WandaVision might suffer a similar fate. One thing I've noticed with this show, and sorry if I'm talking too long, but I noticed that with the show is that a lot of the hype around it is like about how deep and how smart Marvel is and how they've got everything planned, and all these little secrets are hidden, and then there's every day you see a video, there's like 38 Easter eggs that you missed. And yes, they do pepper Easter eggs into their sets. They've always done that since right back to Iron Man
Hmm.
1. I don't think the shows are as smart as they are getting credit for, and I think that's going to ultimately set people's expectations too high. Look how many videos were saying Mephisto and Nightmare and
Yeah.
all these other characters were the big bad of the show. Where I actually think Agatha Harkness is the villain. Like I think that's
Yeah, I think it works. I think
really
it's
what
a.
that theme song, which was really catchy and stuck in my head for a week.
Hmm.
Um, there was Agatha all along. Like I think that is the big bad. I don't think that there's some big
No.
shocking secret or other person she's working for. I think that in their mind when they were developing this was a good enough big reveal. And
Hmm.
it is.
I
But
agree.
because wild speculation has gone nuts, what do you think?
I think a couple of things. I think the show works really well because it's introduced you to facets of the Marvel universe that the movies don't give you. It gives
Mm-hmm.
you the mundane day to day kind of activities of regular people as they're impacted by these superheroes and kind of what happens. And I think that's one of the things that works for it. I think the other thing that works for it is that it's characters that were introduced in movies that people are already interested in. So it kind of gives you more. And the reason that one works so well, unlike things like the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., is because it leans into everything that happens in the movies. It's not like a tongue in cheek, oh, hey, we can't really talk about what happened in the movie, but there was this thing that happened where, Thor showed up and then all of this stuff is on the go. Like it,
Well, it's
it
like the
can,
Netflix shows. They'd always say the Battle of New York.
yeah,
All they could do to touch it to
it's
keep
as
it
close as
connected.
they could get. Whereas in this one, they can just full out have flashbacks to when Ultron attacked, when Thanos attacked, when like you can go down the rabbit hole and find out more about the characters themselves through their history. Um, Without it having to be something like this secret that they're kind of letting you in on because they we're really not supposed to talk about Marvel, but we're going to talk a little bit about it, type of thing. It just leans into the fact that it is an MCU property, so you've got that benefit going for it. I do disagree with you a little bit um, about the writers and everything being very clever and how they've laid out everything has a point, but I do agree with you in the respect that not everything is leading you to some other mega ultra big bad. Like Agatha is the bad guy in this story. It's got the villain. It's got the villain of the week kind of feel to it every week,
Mm-hmm.
but that villain has always been Agatha, and she's just standing in the background. And I think that's as big of a villain as you need to have because it's brought in different story aspects to it. So now the MCU doesn't just, even though they introduced it with Doctor Strange and stuff, maybe this ties in more with the Doctor Strange stuff going into the multiverse of madness. Um, but I think it kind of it gives you the super heroics that you've got from super beings, and then it's giving you magic exists in this world and showing you all the different things that magic can do. Um, I was and I still am super hopeful that they use one of these properties to shoehorn in mutants, but I don't know as much as I want it. I don't know that it's the story venue that would make the most sense from when
Yeah,
it's kind of universe altering. Would it make sense to be in a television property? Probably not. but the nerd part of me is like, just tell us she's a goddamn mutant.
And until today's episode, I thought for sure they were going to introduce mutants through this show, and I fell victim to the hype that you're seeing
Yeah.
online. Oh, who's the cameo that's going to show up? Is it going to be Xavier from the X-Men movies? And you saw Evan Peters, and everyone's like, oh my god, it's the multiverse, and
Yeah.
it's not. Maybe they do. And so, like at the end, like if they even go into explaining how she made him,
Mm-hmm.
I think that was more an audience thing. Like, hey guys, remember you guys know he was Quicksilver in the Fox movies.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but after this episode, the latest episode, and I'll go into it a little deeper. But I don't think it's going to, and I'm not
Yeah.
even sure that they're going to make Wanda a mutant.
No, I don't think
Um,
so.
what I wanted to go back to saying is that I do think what's great about this venue is this, like you touched on, is that it's world building. So it's giving the MCU the opportunity to build up the world of magic or the world of horror or the world, like the things that you won't necessarily have enough time to
Mm-hmm.
satisfactorily develop in a 2 hour movie.
Yep.
And so if you get your fans hooked, and everyone's following Marvel, so like the MCU, there's a joke that it's the world's most expensive TV show because you go from movie to movie to movie. With these shows in between, it's definitely giving you a chance, like you said, to see the in between, the mundane, the really flesh out who these people are and how it impacts the world around us. Like, I hope we do get the Jimmy Woo Darcy spin-off show that everyone's talking about. I thoroughly enjoyed those characters, like, and I did as in the movies, and it was fun to see them here.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I love that he's doing
so,
magic tricks now. That
yeah,
is such a little payoff. That
it's
is
such a
so
growth
fantastic.
from Ant-Man and the Wasp to now. Like he shows the interest there, and then he's mastered it by now.
Yeah.
Um, I also, what was I going with that?
Sorry.
That's okay. I just like that it feels like the MCU watching this too. It doesn't feel like you've got to degrade in budget or quality. Like it feels like an extension as opposed to just like a cash grab.
Yeah.
But I do with this show. I think that people might have their expectations set a little high for how it is. I'm not saying that like there might not. I think there might be a post credits thing at the very end where it's like Agatha might answer to a supreme deity, but I don't think that there was any kind of like Mephisto's behind it or anything. I think they might hint at whatever mystical or magical villain ties into Doctor Strange.
Mm-hmm.
There might be some kind of stinger like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of the plot that is happening in the show and the interaction with Wanda and everything, I don't think that's the case.
One of the things that I do like about it, when we're talking about Doctor Strange and everything, is how the magic she's using is so different from Doctor Strange's magic. His is like university level magic where it's very rote, it's very strict, it's very adhered to, formulaic in that way.
Yes.
And the magic that they're using on this show is more like street level where it's just kind of,
well, if you really look at it, there's three levels of magic in the MCU right now that I've seen. You've got Doctor Strange, like you said, the university textbook fucking masters, and then you've got now the horror version where you're leaning into like Agatha's powers, which is like let's say it's the college version, right? Like it's like she had to really get into her elbow grease to learn those abilities. And then then there's Wanda, who is like natural ability. So or as they've established, chaos magic.
Yeah.
Where like she doesn't even know how or what she's doing with it. And it's because of that moment that I don't think they're gonna have her be a mutant.
No, and I totally agree. I think that's exactly what it comes down to.
I think her powers are magic based on the cosmic energy of the Infinity Stones.
And I think they were natural. They were just boosted by the Mind Stone. Maybe.
Well, yeah, sorry. So like then that's the part that maybe this is how mutation works in the MCU. We don't know. Like I
I don't think they're going
I
to
think it's like
explain.
I'm like anybody else. I'm dying to know how they're going to bring in the X-Men, how they're
Yeah,
going to bring in the Fantastic Four, like all these elements they have to kind of retroactively fit in. And there's a part of me that really hopes they aren't going to use the multiverse to explain it. Like I don't.
yeah, I
I
don't
want
want a
fresh
multiverse to
takes on all
explain
of
it.
these characters. I don't want the Singerverse bleeding into this in any way.
Well, that's the thing, and I don't think they'll do that because they've already brought Spider-Man in, and like they've got their, I hate to say this, they've got their webs into these different areas, so they would have little reason to kind of say, oh, the Fantastic Four exists in its own multiversal platform. Um, I'm curious, like you, to know exactly how they're going to bring everything in. But that's one of the joys of the Marvel universe is that they are wholly um, functional in bringing in mutants and everything. But when you read the comics, they still deal with them in their own silos. They're not, you don't
Yes.
get the feeling like mutants live, mutants live in the same world as Captain America and Thor and Spider-Man and Iron Man and all of them and the Avengers. But they rarely cross paths with them. And so
Well, it's like Sentinels, right?
there's ways to bring them in without having to be to like, oh, Avengers level threat that they have to call in mutants to help with. So it's going to have, mutants um and regular superheroes kind of in there. I think I don't know how they're going to bring them in, but I don't want them to have to shoehorn them into the existing Avengers
Yeah.
universe of the MCU.
What I hope, and I hope it's mutants is treated like they were treated when, the original X-Men comics, where there's not millions of mutants around.
Yeah.
There's a couple 100,000, right? Like it's so that, the world isn't necessarily fully aware of them.
Hmm.
Like I would like it that it's like even if it was just like mutation just started popping up now and it's something that's sort of been going on, but it really exploded after the snap or something like that. Um, because I want mutants to represent that fringe. Like we have a world that like I think the snap is going to make it more viable for mutants to be hated and feared because
Hmm.
of the snap and the trauma that the world has gone through with those movies. Because prior to that, the world was kind of in love with superheroes.
Yep.
Like even after Civil War, it still didn't feel like they hated the heroes or anything like that. Like I feel like it's laid the groundwork that society would be fearful and distrusting and of any kind of anomaly or weird power emerging. There's the old comic nerd in me though that really wants the Scarlet Witch to be a mutant, not the revised origin that they did when they were battling Fox over rights and things like that,
Yeah.
and their
It
creation of
does.
the Beyonder or whatever they are, high evolutionary.
Now
I don't want that.
the big criticism that I do have for the show is that everybody seems to know what happened on the battlefield um
I'm glad you brought
before
that up.
before Thanos did the snap.
In
Like
explicit detail.
in explicit detail, they seem to know exactly what happened. And
Well,
I
you
don't
know what? It's
get
because
it.
everyone had body cams on, and they actually had to after they had a summit here, a Senate hearing, and they were actually able to view it and learn exactly when Thanos snapped and who got dusted and what happened.
And what happened when he reversed time just to kill the
Honestly, in a
Vision,
battlefield as big as Endgame, how would anyone have known that Carol Danvers almost took him out, or that Scarlet Witch almost took him out?
and that
Like,
she would have
in
done it if it
explicit
hadn't
detail,
been
like
for
the
his strike.
Darcy. Oh, like, come on.
Unbelievable. It's just unbelievable.
How would anyone even know it was a snap? Like there was only like 10 people there.
That yeah, I don't know. They referred to it as a blip before, and now it's the snap. So I don't.
But the snap is the actual act, and then the blip was people coming back, like the time they were gone.
Yeah.
Now, how
And
come the
it,
blip was different from Far From Home and this? Whereas like Far From Home, they just appeared back where they were, and in this, it's like they recompiled from the dust.
Yeah, they seem to handle
which I
that a
like
little bit
better, but
differently.
to be honest with you, but
It was a lot creepier
yeah.
in this one. But that's like one fairly major criticism I have of it is that, this omniscient understanding of everything that went on everywhere um, just blows my mind. But yeah, outside of that, I'm really enjoying the show. People that aren't superhero fans are enjoying the show because it's kind of got, I think it's probably appealing to the same people that kind of Joker appealed to in some way, where it's showing somebody that's having a breakdown and how
Mhm.
they're handling it and what happens when you have a breakdown but you have powers. Like, I think it's kind of
There is
giving
one
some
thing that
people
I've
that.
noticed though that I think is lost on a lot of the audience too, and it just might be a generational thing. Is like the earlier episodes, I saw a lot of criticism about the sitcoms and it's kind of boring and this and that. But being somebody like I was fully familiar with the references they were
Yeah,
making. I was like, this is spot on. Like I love this. This
yeah,
is like a faithful and I'm glad that it showed that it was Dick Van Dyke that they were really parodying in the first one and
yeah.
the Brady Bunch and all those different ones that they kind of hinted at. Um, I thought that was a great part of the show and part of the appeal, and I like that we had that early on, and it
Hmm.
gave you that what's going on kind of feeling. And now we're I liked how one of the things I really enjoyed was how they would change the aspect ratio too. So to identify when it's the alternate the TV world, it was like the full frame kind of look, and then
Yeah.
you get into the real world and it come back. The cinema bars come back, and you're back to your widescreen MCU
Hmm.
experience. Um, can I
See it?
say I'm hyped for Vision? And when I say Vision, I mean West Coast Avengers Vision, rebuilt, emotionless Vision.
Hmm.
There's a part of me that thinks that when Paul Bettany was saying that there was another person coming up that he's always wanted to work with and everything, and he was really excited and he thought they had fireworks and whatnot. There's a part of me that's hoping he meant himself when it's like going to be him versus himself. I think that'd be kind of fun.
That would
But
be cool. I totally agree with you. I'm totally on board, and I love and that's what I mean about they are being deliberate and very clever about how they're doing things.
mhm,
I love the aspect ratio change. I don't know how much of the audience actually pick up on it, but
mhm.
I love every time it happens. I think that is such a clever way of showing what's actually going on.
That is where I think this show excels is like the little finer details that they've paid attention to. Not necessarily big reveals or
Hmm.
hidden truths, but like just the background dressing like of the show and like the you can go everyone's picked up now on kind of the hexagon shapes everywhere and just like just I love the little details that they pay attention to even though they have made mistakes there was one episode where like you saw the dossiers on the wall
Yeah.
and it turns out the dossier said stuff that happened in an episode that hadn't happened yet, so it was just kind of editing a continuity error there, but like you wouldn't notice that unless you're really
Yeah.
combing over it.
Now, sorry to interrupt. It
That's
just
okay.
reminded me there is one continuity thing and one error that strikes me in this most recent episode.
Okay.
And you're probably going to bring it up too, but it's when they were dealing with her recreating Vision. And initially, they had said that took his body and recreated him, and everybody wants his body back. But in this episode, she just recreated him out of nothingness.
That I think was because Hayward's lying. I think the director of Sword is actually a true villain of the story in a sense.
I agree there too, but
I
it's
think that he just lied that they had taken the bot that she had taken the body that because the surveillance video he showed is just her bursting into the room. It never showed her actually taking the body.
I
So
totally
I
agree
think
with
that
that. So then
for his
he's got,
agenda, he was saying she stole the body, but we're now seeing the truth that she never did. Like it was just she's been she's the villain in a sense because she's created this reality around her and has victimized the people that were caught in it. But she's not the villain that Sword is portraying to everybody.
yeah, I totally agree with that. I was just confused with Okay, did she or didn't she take the body? So then there's two visions out there. There's
So I
this
think it's
fabrication.
mind and soul is what or body and soul is what I think they're going for. So there's the rebuilt vision, which is the physical
Okay.
body that still exists, and they were able to. They couldn't get it to work till they had that source of her power around that missile, using her chaos magic, I guess. However, I don't know what
Hmm.
adapter you use for that to hook it up, but somehow it exists. Uh, but the vision she created, I think, is like his maybe his spiritual essence, as far as that could go. So like I see two ways it could go. Is one, we have heartbreak at the end, is that they defeat the android vision, and I don't think that he's the. I think that physical vision will survive, like kind of like in the comics, or you just kind of is what it is.
Hmm.
Whether the vision we love and care about, the one with the personality, like, does he survive? I don't know if he can, as we've shown, unless there's some way to bond that with the physical body again, like, he can't survive outside the hex. Like, as soon as he pulled himself through it, he just starts to disintegrate.
Hmm.
So there might be that heartbreak where he dies when she has to let go of this hex, or maybe she doesn't let go of this hex, and this is what leads into Doctor Strange. Who, like, we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully we find out next week.
I would be annoyed if it ends on a cliffhanger. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Like, I think these have to have clear cut endings, even if it
Yeah.
is leading into something else.
Yeah. It's an interesting theory you have there. I hadn't considered that. I hadn't gone that route. So I'll be curious to see if that's what they end up doing. I really hope they do bring Vision back.
He's an
Um,
underutilized character as far as I'm concerned. He's
yeah.
been around since the beginning, really, like at least Paul Bettany has, but
Hmm.
like from Jarvis to Vision to Vision 2.0, like it's. I think there's more to tell with his character, and we haven't really gotten to see him showcase the way, at least I would want.
Yep.
Um, and same with Scarlet Witch. Like, I think that when they say she's going to be heavily involved with Phase 4, that's exciting to me, because I've always gravitated towards the characters that kind of tie in, even in an ancillary way, to the X world.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I hope there's like this part of me that would love to see Magneto be the big reveal at the end, show up to like claim his real daughter, and off he goes, and it's like, whoa, holy shit,
And that's the cliffhanger.
like that to me. And I don't, I'm not saying I want Ian McKellen or Fassbender. I mean, like, I want the MCU's Magneto to be like, enough of this crap, and he just like decimates everybody and grabs Wanda, and off he goes.
Hmm.
I think that would be an explosive way to introduce him to the world. I really don't want to see like his origin again, and like him being in the concentration camp and
Yeah.
losing his family. Like again, like Spider-Man, they hit the ground running, and I'm hoping that's what they kind of do in a sense with X-Men and Fantastic Four. When Monica Rambeau, which is a character I wanted to bring up, when she mentioned, or when she was having the meeting with Hayward, and they talked about missing astronauts, like my mind immediately went to like, oh man, is that the
Hmm.
Fantastic Four? Have they is that the how they're peppering their background, their story into this? Like, they haven't resurfaced yet.
Yeah.
Who knows? But one of the things that I've enjoyed too was Monica Rambeau's character being introduced properly, and even getting her photon Captain
Hmm.
Marvel powers. Uh, that's one of the things I really like about this too, is there's a lot of the 80s influence for the Avengers, which is, I think, one of the better eras of Avengers. Um, I would love to see this iteration of Monica Rambeau. I'd like to see her become the Captain Marvel of this universe. She is, first of all, the first female Captain Marvel in the comics, and it. I don't think Captain Marvel with the MCU landed the way they hoped,
No.
and so I think that this might be a way for them to kind of revisit it. Like, it's not good when, like, you're one of the hero that you touted to be like the top hero, and people are like excited that Rogue could be in the sequel and take her out. Like, that's not a
Yeah.
good sign.
It's not a good. That's very true.
Where
No,
the
it
audience
doesn't.
seems to be really into Monica Rambeau's as a character, and I think it's going to be interesting to see the full scale of her powers because she's pretty much an infinite power type character. So
Mhm.
we'll see.
Yeah, I'll be very curious to see how they introduce her. They introduce the Captain Marvel aspect of her,
Hmm.
but they have done a great job in introducing Monica Rambeau and then giving her the powers. And we still don't know exactly what her powers are and how they impact what is going to be happening in the next episode because she's going to
Yeah,
have to be um, fighting something, and we already know that some of Wanda's magic doesn't necessarily work on her.
yeah, that's true.
So seeing exactly how this is going to play out will be very, very interesting. Okay.
So I have to ask you, and I'm putting you on the spot, but do you have any predictions for the final episode?
My only prediction is that Vision comes back into the MCU, but he will come back different. And whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but he's going to come back very different from the way he was. So it's not going to be a happy ending for Wanda.
Yeah,
That's
I,
my only prediction.
I think you're right there. I think this Vision that's going to be clearly controlled by Sword, because apparently you can't have these clandestine defense teams be corrupt. They have to be corrupt in some
Mm-hmm.
way. Um, I think that whether it'll be through the influence of this spectral, like the spiritual vision, I think that he'll break free of whatever control they have of him. But I think he's gonna be very much like the West Coast Avengers vision, where he's a good guy. He just has no emotional attachment. He's kind of, it's like his journey is to like kind of reclaim his quote unquote humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that might be the way that they go with it. I just can't see them killing off Vision completely,
Yeah.
especially because he hasn't really been fully utilized yet. You know, he had a few shots of him using his powers, and that was pretty much it, like across the movies that he's been in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's gonna have a bit of a sad ending. But or it could be that she comes to terms with her loss. We don't know.
Time will tell. We'll find out in a week's time. All
Historically, she hasn't dealt with it well. So
She has not dealt with it well historically in the movies or in the comics. So
yeah, I have one final question for you then.
sure.
Does Pietro stick around after this? Does he somehow end up being her brother? Or is
No,
that just a one and done?
him and the kids are gone.
Yeah,
Him and
you
the
think the
kids are
kids are gone
gone.
too?
Yeah. Yeah. The
Ooh.
kids are just constructs. So they're gone by the end of
But
the
they're showing abilities which is different from all the other constructs. No, because then Vision has powers too. You're right.
yeah.
Man, but they seem to be setting up young Avengers, so I don't know. Like the other characters are being set up as well outside of this too.
Yeah. I don't know that.
They did manage to say like no, because it was like things that come into the hex can come out and they're changed, but they're still there.
Mm-hmm.
And their kids are full constructs. Hmm. Yeah, it could go either way. I don't know if
Yeah.
Disney though do they go that dark?
I don't think the kids are going to stick around. I could be wrong, but it might also just be wishful thinking. Because I don't like just the creation of the kids. I don't like how that just kind of
It's
happened.
kind of how it happened in the comics too, though.
I
So
know, I know. It's just I could be wrong, and I've been wrong
well,
before.
that's where the Mephisto theories came in too, right? Because in the comics, she used like shards of his soul or something to bring them to life. So, which
Hmm.
has not been indicated at all in this. So, and you know, if you're going to market to the Chinese market, I don't think you can have children born of the devil's soul. So, plus Disney. So,
Yeah,
not sure how that'll work.
not sure.
So, without having seen the final episode, what would you give this rating? How would you rate this?
I give this a 5. I'm a 5 out of 5 on this one. I really do enjoy it. Um, my wife is into it, and it's one of those things where she's got a rule with movies and things like no aliens, no guns, no like stupidity, and this kind of falls right into all of those realms where there's guns and there's craziness and it's heavy comics, but there's somebody dealing with grief and somebody having that breakdown, and it's got the hooks. It's got the hooks
Yeah.
out there for enough people to be into it. So 5 out of 5 for me.
Well, who would have thought Catherine Hahn would be the breakout star of this? I definitely didn't
That's
think
another
that
selling
going in,
feature. That's another
but
selling feature of that.
she's been fantastic as Agatha.
Amazing.
Just, I think actually, truthfully, I should say, like all the performances have been best of their career level performances.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't know that these actors. Honestly, I didn't know they had the range that they've shown in the show, which you wouldn't get from their previous MCU, outings, right? Like, so it's really showcased their abilities. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I would give this 5 spectral children out of 5. I really enjoy that, and the good thing that they're spectral children is that I can erase them afterwards if it doesn't pay off in the end.
If you don't like it,
Yeah.
and they're gone.
2 out of 5.
Very cool.
So, yeah, that's all I got to say, really.
All right. Well, if anybody else has anything to say, you can leave us a comment at terminalvelocitypodcast.com or send us an email at terminalvelocitypodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah,
And
we're
we'd be
on
happy
all
to
the
hear from
social
you.
medias too. Sorry about that, Scott. You can tweet us at Comics Terminal, and we're on all the other kind of outlets.
Okay. So maybe next week we'll do a recap of how the whole series actually ended. But until our next time, we will talk to you later.
Take care.
Bye.
And I killed Sparky too.